If you are holding an iPhone 17 Pro Max, or especially anything older, you might want to sit down and rethink your upgrade cycle. For the last 3 years, we have been handed incremental updates dressed up as revolutions. A new button here, a slightly thinner bezel there, a new titanium finish. Nice, but hardly the kind of hardware leap that makes you want to immediately drop $1,200. But the iPhone 18 Pro Max is violently breaking that cycle, and Apple is completely tearing up its traditional playbook to make it happen. We are talking about the first true node shrink in Apple Silicon in 3 years, a variable aperture camera technology that actually threatens dedicated DSLRs, and a bizarre new split-release strategy that pushes the base iPhone 18 entirely to 2027. All of this is happening just so Apple can focus its entire supply chain firepower on the Pro models and the new iPhone Fold this September. Before we get into the exact breakdown, let's separate the noise from the facts. According to recent supply chain reports from MacRumors, research notes from analyst Ming-Chi Kuo, Bloomberg, and production leaks out of Korea from early May 2026, the core specifications for the iPhone 18 Pro Max are officially locked in. These sources confirm the transition to TSMC's 2nm process for the A20 Pro Chip, a massive battery increase crossing the 5,100 mAh threshold, and the long-rumored variable aperture camera system entering mass production. The display sizes remain unchanged at 6.9 inches, and the baseline pricing strategy is expected to hold steady at $1,199, though higher storage tiers will likely see a margin-absorbing price bump. Let's start with what you actually stare at all day, because the front of the iPhone 18 Pro Max is finally getting the premium facelift we have been begging for since 2022. The dynamic island is definitively shrinking. Depending on the prototype mold, we are looking at a 25 to 35% reduction in width. Apple is achieving this by moving the Face ID flood illuminator and dot projector completely under the OLED display, leaving just the front-facing camera and proximity sensor visible. It might not sound like a monumental shift on paper, but in practice, it means significantly more usable screen real estate for your status bar and much less visual intrusion when you are consuming full-screen media or gaming. It is that exact kind of premium, quiet refinement that instantly makes older models look dated. As for the chassis itself, the physical footprint stays identical to the 17 Pro Max at 6.9 inches, retaining the gorgeous LTPO Plus OLED promotion display running at 120 Hz. But the camera plateau on the back is getting noticeably thicker, jumping from 11.23mm to roughly 11.54mm. And the colors? Say goodbye to basic black. This year, the signature hero color is a deep, rich dark cherry, joining light blue, dark gray, and the classic silver. It is a mature, incredibly sleek lineup that feels distinctly high-end. Now, about that thicker camera bump, it is there for a very good reason, and it is arguably the most substantial hardware story of the year. For the very first time in iPhone history, the 48-megapixel main fusion camera is getting a variable aperture lens. If you are a photography nerd, or even just someone who takes a lot of portraits, you know exactly how massive this is. Every iPhone before this has featured a fixed aperture, meaning the lens opening was permanently stuck at one size, relying entirely on heavy computational software to fake background blur or digitally balance incoming light. The iPhone 18 Pro Max physically alters the lens opening with mechanical blades. You can open it wide to flood the sensor with natural light and pitch black environments for noise-free night shots, or stop it down to keep an entire sweeping landscape in razor-sharp focus. You get genuine, optical depth of field, operating exactly like a dedicated mirrorless camera, paired with a heavily rumored 3-layer stack CMOS sensor that drastically reduces image noise and improves dynamic range, plus a massively upgraded 24-megapixel front-facing camera for exponentially sharper video calls. This isn't just another iterative camera bump. This is Apple actively targeting professional creators and making the gap between a smartphone and a dedicated professional camera uncomfortably narrow. But pushing all those raw pixels, managing mechanical lens parts, and powering advanced algorithms requires serious horsepower, which brings us to the actual brain of this machine, the A20 Pro. We are finally stepping out of the 3nm era and moving to TSMC's bleeding-edge 2nm manufacturing process. For those of us who track chip architecture, a true node shrink like this is a monumental leap. Apple is packing significantly more transistors into the exact same physical space using new wafer-level multi-chip module packaging. We are looking at a projected 15% raw CPU performance boost and, far more importantly, a 30% improvement in power efficiency compared to the A19 Pro. Paired with 12 GB of RAM across the board, this phone is essentially a supercomputer built explicitly to process the next wave of on-device Apple intelligence without breaking a sweat or draining your battery. Everything from complex, instantaneous image generation to real-time, context-aware language models will run locally, incredibly fast, and with total privacy. That 30% efficiency gain leads directly into the single most practical, life-changing upgrade for everyday users: the battery endurance. Multiple supply chain leaks are firmly pointing to a battery capacity of around 5,100 to 5,200 mAh for the iPhone 18 Pro Max. When you combine the absolute largest physical battery Apple has ever engineered into a phone with the ultra-efficient 2nm A20 Pro chip, the math gets genuinely crazy. We are easily looking at a device that pushes well past 40 hours of mixed-use runtime. Imagine taking your phone off the charger on a Friday morning, aggressively using it for GPS navigation, 4K video recording, heavy social media scrolling, and not even thinking about plugging it into a wall until late Saturday night. For power users, frequent travelers, or anyone who suffers from chronic battery anxiety, this one single feature entirely justifies the upgrade cost. It is the definitive end of the midday top-up. There is also a massive, silent killer feature tucked away inside this device that nobody is paying nearly enough attention to. Apple is finally ditching Qualcomm and debuting its own second-generation, in-house 5G modem, the C2, alongside a new N2 wireless chip bringing advanced Wi-Fi 7 and Bluetooth 6. Why should you care about a modem? Because it entirely dictates how your phone talks to the outside world. The C2 is bringing incredibly fast full mmWave 5G capabilities. But the real magic is its expanded satellite internet support. We are moving past the days of simple emergency SOS text messages. Apple is laying the groundwork to allow third-party apps, rich Apple Maps data, and full iMessage capabilities to function over non-terrestrial satellite networks. If you are completely off the grid, hiking in the mountains, or stuck in a total cellular dead zone, your iPhone 18 Pro Max will still have functional, reliable internet access. That is an absolute game-changer for digital reliability and personal safety. What is equally fascinating about all of this is Apple's underlying business strategy. As I touched on earlier, there is no standard iPhone 18 launching this September. Apple is executing a highly unusual split-release strategy, pushing the base iPhone 18 and the rumored 18e completely to the spring of 2027. Why the delay? Because the 2nm silicon wafers are astronomically expensive to produce right now, reportedly up to 50% more costly than the previous generation. Apple is choosing to absorb that massive cost internally to keep the iPhone 18 Pro Max at its highly competitive $1,199 starting price for the base 256GB model. However, do not be surprised if the 512GB and 1TB tiers see a slight price hike to balance the books. By entirely clearing the stage of the standard base models, Apple is giving the premium iPhone 18 Pro Max and the highly anticipated foldable iPhone Fold all the oxygen in the room to dominate the premium smartphone market this fall. Let's separate the marketing signal from the noise and talk about what this actually means for your wallet. If you are currently rocking an iPhone 15 Pro Max, an iPhone 14, or any older model, the iPhone 18 Pro Max is going to feel like an alien artifact dropped into your hands. The staggering jump in multi-day battery life alone will fundamentally change how you interact with your device, not to mention the massive leap in photographic capability with that true mechanical variable aperture and the drastically smaller dynamic island. Even if you are holding last year's 16 Pro Max, the 2nm chip efficiency, the advanced Apple Intelligence integration, and the true satellite internet capabilities make this an incredibly tempting, highly rational upgrade. However, if you just dropped premium cash on the iPhone 17 Pro Max a few months ago, you might want to hold your fire and keep your wallet closed, unless you are a die-hard photography enthusiast who absolutely needs that physical aperture control for your creative workflow. Ultimately, the iPhone 18 Pro Max isn't just another predictable, safe September refresh. Between the bleeding-edge 2nm silicon, the legitimate DSLR-threatening camera tech, the sleek shrinking dynamic island, and a battery that absolutely refuses to die, Apple is finally delivering the true, pro, hardware leap we have been waiting years for. It is a mature, incredibly refined beast of a machine that entirely redefines what a flagship premium smartphone should be in 2026. But I want to pass the question over to you. Does the addition of a mechanical variable aperture camera and a 5200 mAh battery make the iPhone 18 Pro Max an instant, day one buy for you? Or are you holding out your cash to see what the foldable iPhone Fold brings to the table? Let me know your exact thoughts down in the comments because I read every single one of them. If you found this breakdown valuable and fluff-free, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our upcoming deep dive on the iPhone Fold, and I will see you in the next one.